Hey guys, what is going on? So it has come down to that time of the year where, if you guys haven't noticed, in the past 6 months, there have been more than a few reviews that I have missed. And like I had mentioned in the past, it's not that I don't want to do these reviews, because I absolutely do, but the main reasons why I haven't been able to do them is because either life gets in the way, or the other thing is that I've just been really busy these days. But like I have also mentioned in the past, I don't want to leave you guys hanging with these reviews, and I'm going to try to get through these reviews as quick as I possibly can, because there is a lot to get through. So buckle up, guys, because it is time for part 2 of my late reviews roundup of 2019, starting off with Spider-Man Far From Home. So Spider-Man Far From Home is not only the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, but it is also the sequel to Avengers Endgame, and in this film we once again follow Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland. In this film, he is dealing with essentially the world after the events of Avengers Endgame, where everyone is expecting him to take on the mantle of Tony Stark, who, if you haven't seen Endgame at this point, I mean, where have you been living in the past couple of months? But Peter Parker just understandably wants some time off, so he goes with his friends on a school trip to Europe, but unfortunately his work will just not leave him alone. So in Europe, he encounters not only Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, but the Elementals, along with a new ally, Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. So I was really excited to see Spider-Man Far From Home, mainly because I really wanted to see what happened with Peter Parker's character, knowing what happened after the events of Avengers Endgame, and seeing how he would deal with all the trauma that happened with him. And I'm really happy to say, guys, that I thought that Spider-Man Far From Home was excellent. Now, getting into everything I like, the performances across the board are excellent, from Tom Holland to Zendaya to also Jake Gyllenhaal. By the way, absolutely crushed it as Mysterio. Also, Samuel L. Jackson, as you'd probably expect, was excellent as Nick Fury, and I love the classmates, including Ned, who I thought was far better here than Homecoming, because I don't know if you guys saw my review of Spider-Man Homecoming, but I thought that Ned was annoying as shit. One thing that I particularly loved about Spider-Man Far From Home as well is how the plot progresses from the first half to the second half, and I honestly thought that the second half was far stronger than the first half. I also thought the visual effects were incredible, especially the sequences where Mysterio was playing with Spider-Man. These sequences were straight out of a Batman Arkham Asylum game. If you've played those games, you guys will understand completely, because those sequences, holy shit. Also, the action sequences were phenomenal, especially at the end. I mean, whoa. And the post-credit scenes, I mean, oh my god. Now, if I were to give my only issue about Spider-Man Far From Home, it's that the first half isn't as strong as the second half. Now, that's not to say that the first half isn't good. It's still a very entertaining first half. At the same time, right when you get into that second half, this film kicks right into high gear, and I just wish that first half was as strong as the second half was. Nonetheless, I dug the hell out of Spider-Man Far From Home, so I'm going to give Spider-Man Far From Home a 4.75 out of 5 stars. I honestly thought this was better than Spider-Man Homecoming, but really, if you guys haven't seen this movie yet, seriously, check it out. It is awesome. Next up is my review of Yesterday, a romantic comedy that stars Himesh Patel as Jack, a man who, after a power outage, seems to be the only one that remembers of the Beatles' existence. And being that Jack is a struggling musician, what does he do? He essentially takes the Beatles' music, since no one seems to remember, and uses them as his own music. Now, this is what I'll say about Yesterday. Himesh Patel and Lily James, I think it's Lily James, are great in this movie. I love their chemistry, and not to mention Himesh Patel is a phenomenal singer. And I love the concept of basically a person being the only one that remembers the Beatles ever existed. It's a very nice concept. Not to mention, I love the first half an hour, and I love the last act of this movie. Now, I will say this when it comes to a big strength of this movie. This movie proves that if the Beatles were to start today, Beatlemania would exist. That being said, I thought that Yesterday was a big disappointment. Given that the concept of this movie is that a man that, after a power outage, is the only one that remembers the Beatles existing, I mean, you're supposed to tell me, I get it's supposed to be this magical phenomenon, but here's the thing. I don't think a power outage, especially the span of 12 seconds, would wipe out everyone's memory of the Beatles. Not to mention, when it comes to the other characters, I thought that Jack's father, good God, he got on my nerves so much. I did not like him, and Kate McKinnon, who I usually love, couldn't stand her in this movie at all. But really, one of my biggest complaints about this movie too is that it was really more of a romantic comedy than a movie about a guy who I thought was about to do a huge rise in his career, because he is the only one that thinks he's remembering the Beatles. But when the Beatles come in and say, hey, that's our music. What are you doing? But I was expecting a completely different movie, and because of this, I thought this movie was kind of boring in all honesty. One other issue I had with this movie too, and I don't know if you guys experienced, it's more of a technical thing, but when Hamish comes out and says, hey, these songs are not mine, there is this lighting issue, I guess, and I don't know if I was the only one to experience this, but in the top of the screen, it just became way too lit, if that makes sense, and then after the next couple of minutes, it went back to normal lighting. I don't know if it was just me that experienced, maybe it was just the theater, but it just took me out of it completely. All in all, I really wanted to like Yesterday, but I came out really disappointed, so I'm going to give Yesterday a 2 out of 5 stars. Really wanted to like this one, but I was really let down. This is one of my biggest disappointments of 2019. Up next is going to be my review for Stuber, a comedy that stars Kamal Nanjiani and Dave Bautista, as it mainly follows a character played by Kamal Nanjiani who gets an Uber order to pick up a character played by Dave Bautista, who is a police officer, and when Kamal Nanjiani picks up Dave Bautista, he's in for the ride of his life. So Stuber was a movie that I had heard mixed things about. Some people were saying that it was absolutely hilarious, and others were saying that it was just dumb as can be. And where do I stand? I thought this movie was stupid as hell. Now, what I will definitely say about Stuber is that when it comes to the acting, the chemistry between Kamal Nanjiani and Dave Bautista is great. And given how the comedic chemistry is so great in this film, they deserve such a better movie than this. And I will not lie to you guys, there were definitely more than a few scenes that I was laughing, particularly a fight that takes place in the department store was laughing my ass off. And this movie is definitely entertaining at times, but other than that, Stuber, like I mentioned, it's fucking stupid. It really is. Now, given how this film is about an Uber driver that picks up a police officer that's pretty much blind, this movie could have some great physical comedy, and I really didn't find the physical comedy that funny, minus the department store fight scene. Also, when it comes to the plot, it is predictable up the ass, especially when it comes to one certain cop that comes in when the shit goes down. You pretty much guess right when she comes up, oh yeah, you're the reason why everything's happening, right? And sure enough, she is. Also, there's a subplot that involves Kamal Nanjiani trying to be this rebound for a girl just so that he can fuck her. And I just thought it was a stupid and annoying subplot that just would not go away. This movie was boring, honestly. I just wasn't into this movie, given how this movie had a really kind of a funny concept, and the chemistry between Kamal Nanjiani and Dave Bautista, it should have been so much more funny than it is. I mean, Dave Bautista is a hilarious actor, and here, I really just don't feel like that they took his comedic chops the potential that they could have. All in all, Stuber was just stupid as all hell, so I'm gonna give Stuber a 2 out of 5 stars. I didn't absolutely hate it, even though it seems like that I absolutely did. I wasn't an absolute torture. It was just a really dumb movie. That's all there is to it. Up next is my review for a film called The Hole in the Ground, a horror film that was released by A24 that follows a single mother who is trying to take care for her son. However, when a sinkhole comes out, she realizes that her son isn't quite right. Now, when I explain the synopsis for The Hole in the Ground, it sounds like another typical my son isn't right type of horror film. But this one, I'm telling you guys, this is a damn good horror film, and I mean a damn good one. Now, when it comes to the performances in this movie, everyone is excellent across the board, especially the mother and the one who plays her son. I mean, the son in this movie is creepy as hell. There is a particular scene, I'm not gonna lie, thinking about it right now is giving me goosebumps. But really, my biggest praise for The Hole in the Ground is that when it comes to the concept of my child isn't right, it could have been another one of those standard movies, but this movie takes that concept and gives it a new twist, and I can't spoil it because when it came to the plot twist, not gonna lie, I just went in my head, or I said out loud, whoa, that is awesome. It is just a damn shame that this got a limited release, and a film like The Prodigy got a wide release. Really? But really the biggest question of this movie is this. Is it scary? Is it freaky? Is it suspenseful? Absolutely yes. There were multiple scenes in this movie, just from the kid's performance alone, in which I was creeped the fuck out. But there is one scene into which this kid is just doing this to his mother's head. He starts digging in. At one certain point, I was just like, oh my god! Another one of my biggest praises with this movie is, like I mentioned before, there is a sinkhole involved in this movie. And how the sinkhole plays a key part in this movie, I thought was really, really cool. Now, in terms of my issues, I will definitely say this. There are some questions that the film asks and it never really answers. Another thing is that there are some scares, like there was a couple of jump scares that didn't quite work. Another thing is that I feel like the film was just a tad bit too short. Other than that, though, The Hole in the Ground is a damn good horror film, and I'm going to give The Hole in the Ground a 4 out of 5 stars. If you guys have not seen this film yet, I highly suggest you guys check this movie out, especially if you're looking for a new type of my kid is in right type of horror film. I mean, seriously, it is good. On to the next review, I'm going to be talking about the reboot of Child's Play, which is called Child's Play. So Child's Play, like I mentioned before, is a reboot of the classic slasher series that starred Chucky the doll, who in the previous films was voiced by Brad Dourif. This time, Chucky is voiced by Mark Hamill, who I thought was a brilliant casting choice. In Child's Play, we follow a single mother played by Aubrey Plaza, who gets her son a present for, I believe, his birthday, and that present happens to be Chucky, played by Mark Hamill. And when he notices that this doll is kind of screwed up, the doll decides to try and learn to adapt to what this person was reacting to, and as a result, he doesn't really learn the best of things. Now, the performances, I will say, from Child's Play are very good. I liked Aubrey Plaza, I liked the son, I liked Mark Hamill, of course. If I were to give my biggest praise about this movie, it's obviously Mark Hamill as Chucky, although I will say there's definitely bits of the Joker in that Chucky voice, but honestly, given how sadistic Chucky is, it makes sense for me. Also, another thing is that when it comes to the kills, this movie, they are gory as can be, and the kills are a lot of fun, especially in that final act. The final act of this movie is a lot of fun, and I love the score by Bear McCree. And something else I really liked about this version of Child's Play is that they changed how Chucky becomes evil, where last time it was a person that performed a ritual on himself to transfer his soul into the doll. It was this time a doll that was trying to essentially adapt and learn things, and even though everything that he didn't learn was great, he was just trying to learn to make this kid happy, which I really liked. Going to the things I didn't like about Child's Play, one of them is that I did not buy that Aubrey Plaza was a mother for this little kid. She seemed way too young to be a mother. I mean, I just didn't buy it at all. Now, the next thing might just be a personal thing for me, but I felt that Chucky's turn to evil was a bit rushed, if you ask me. I don't know if it was just me that felt that way. And another thing is that in that first half, I was honestly not that interested in what was going on. I mean, everything that involved Chucky, I really dug, but everything else I thought was just not that interesting. But I will say this, the moment that this film hits the second half where the shit starts to really go down, I was entertained, the blood and guts, the fun started happening, and I started to have a really good time with this movie. But yeah, all in all, I thought that Child's Play was a solid enough movie, so I'm gonna give Child's Play a 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like that this movie could have improved in some areas, but really other than that, it's a fun movie. And by the way, I wanted to mention that when I saw this movie on its opening night, I met a really cool fan named Andy. If that's not your name, I really do apologize, but we just sat down, we talked about movies, gaming, and it was really humbling to meet you, sir. You're a really cool dude. The next movie I'm going to be reviewing is the adaptation of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark based on the book series of the same name. In Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, we follow a group of kids during Halloween time. I think it was the 70s or 80s decade, I'll put it down here. But we follow this group of kids that go into this one house, and when one of them discovers a book, they realize that the stories from the books are coming to life. Now, when I mentioned that synopsis, it sounds very familiar to another movie that came out a couple years ago. Goosebumps, right? The acting minus one person was good across the board, and one thing I really liked was the chemistry between all the kids. I thought that they worked really well off together, and when some things happened to the kids, I felt really scared for them. But really though, my biggest praise towards Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was how this movie brings the stories to life, particularly Harold the Scarecrow, the Big Toe story, particularly the dream. I mean, that sequence was terrifying. And something else when it came to the stories come to life was that the practical effects makeup was phenomenal, especially for Harold. I mean, damn, it looked good. Also, the film is beautifully shot, and I love the music. The music, especially in the beginning part of the film and the opening credits, gave me straight up chills, I'm not gonna lie. And was this film scary? For the most part, yes, it was. And the other thing is that this movie is fast-paced, it never dragged, it was constantly entertaining the entire time. Now, going to my negatives, going into the acting, the one person I did not like was the person who played the jock. I don't know if it was just the directing that he was given or just the performance that he gave, but oh my god, overcooked the shit out of his performance. And when he died, I just thought, thank God. Something else I'll say about scary stories to tell in the dark when it came to my negatives is that there were times this movie is not so good, then it starts to go up, down. This movie basically is like a roller coaster, right? Where it starts off great, then it kind of cools down and starts to get a little generic, then it goes back up and starts to get good again, then it starts to get a little generic again, and it happens throughout the entire film. And something else I feel like with this movie is that given all the source material for these books is actually kind of scary. I feel like that this movie could have gone a bit further with the PG-13 rating than it actually did. Also, when it came to some of the scares, some of them didn't quite work as they should have, and one story in particular, when it was brought to life, didn't look particularly great, but really, other than that, guys, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a lot of fun at times. It's quite scary, so I'm gonna give Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark a 3.2 out of 5 stars. And just like the books, it'll be a great way for pre-teens and older kids to get into the horror genre. Coming up next is my review for the film The Kitchen, which is actually based on a comic book, which really surprised when I heard that. But this is a film that follows 3 wives who are played by Melissa McCarthy, Tiffany Haddish, and Elizabeth Moss, who after their husbands are sent to jail for committing a crime, they realize that when they are getting paid the amount that they should be paid, they decide to put work into their own hands, essentially run the mob. And this is what I'll say when it comes to this movie. Performance-wise, Melissa McCarthy is great in this movie, and there are scenes here and there that show the potential to how this movie could be great. But unfortunately, The Kitchen, oh man, this is such a bad movie. I mean, this movie is bad. Now, when it comes to the performances from Tiffany Haddish and Elizabeth Moss, starting with Tiffany Haddish, what is going on with her career? When she seems like she's about to go somewhere in the performance, she says, "Oh, I gotta be somewhere, sorry." And she just leaves the screen. And Elizabeth Moss is given nothing to do but essentially mope around the whole time. Not to mention when it came to Domhnall Gleeson, his appearance was so rammed to the point where I was just like, oh, okay. But really the best way I can describe The Kitchen is that it just feels like scenes that are cut together with these women that talk about doing these badass things, but we never see them doing these things. Like, there is maybe one thing that they possibly do, but other than that, they keep talking and saying, "Oh, we're so awesome." And I just thought, what the fuck have you guys done? And another one of my biggest faults with this movie is that this movie, through most of it, is just boring as can be. I mean, oh my god. For a movie that has such a great concept as this, it shouldn't have been as boring as it was. This should have been a really compelling movie that involved 3 ladies trying to essentially go up the ranks of the mob. But really, like at one certain point, they try and do something, but it's just way too late. And I just thought, alright, whatever. But the biggest shock of this movie is that the writer-director of The Kitchen was one of the writers of Straight Outta Compton. How do you go from that amazing movie to this boring, incoherent mess of a movie? But yeah, what this movie really is that these ladies are boasting about doing badass things when they're really not doing any badass things, and they're just walking around. That's it. Now, I could go on as to why I thought The Kitchen was absolutely terrible, but I'm just gonna say that The Kitchen is one of the worst films of the year, so I'm gonna give The Kitchen a 1 to 5 stars. Given the talent behind and in front of the camera, this movie should have been so much better than it actually was. Coming up next is my review for Angel Has Fallen, the 3rd film in this new action franchise starring Gerard Butler. But in Angel Has Fallen, we once again follow Gerard Butler, who is essentially the guy who was trying to defend the President of the United States, who in this one was played by Morgan Freeman, from whoever tries to do any wrong to him. But after an assassination attempt, someone has framed Gerard Butler's character of the assassination. What I think? It's on the same level as London, maybe a slightly better, but not all that much better. Now, I'll definitely say this, Gerard Butler is amazing in this film. So if anything, these movies prove he is a great action star, the way how he carries himself, and he's an absolute badass in these films. And the stunts that he does this movie made me think, god damn it, you know what? Gerard Butler deserves better action films than these. He really does. I did like the back and forth banter between him and Morgan Freeman, even though I missed the back and forth between him and Aaron Eckhart, which I thought made the previous 2 films as fun as they were. And the action sequences, for some parts, are fairly well done. But like London Has Fallen, Angel Has Fallen is just stupid as all hell. I mean, seriously, you're telling me that during this assassination attempt, with how everything is videoed these days, especially in these films, you're telling me that they couldn't have identified who framed the guy in the first place? And by the way, predictable as all hell. The moment that the villain came on screen, I knew who they were right away. And when it came to the special effects, oh my god, and I actually found this out last night before I started filming this, but apparently the budget for these films went lower and lower and lower, and god, it shows. Also, there is this relationship between Gerard Butler and Nick Nolte, to which, I mean, it's there, and I could tell it was a reason for us to care about the whole family dynamic, but really, I feel like a way to just forward the plot. But really the best way I can describe Angel Has Fallen is that it is just a forgettable action movie. It's not a terrible movie per se, it's not a great one, but it's just a forgettable direct-to-DVD action movie that just happens to have a big name actor in it. And Gerard Butler, he really does deserve a much better film than these, because if anything, Olympus Has Fallen has proven he's a cool action hero. But all in all, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet with this one. Angel Has Fallen is not worse than London Has Fallen. It's slightly better, but it's still not even an okay film. So I'm gonna give Angel Has Fallen a 1.75 out of 5 stars. For Gerard Butler to be in these movies for as cool of an action hero as he is, he deserves so much better than these. He really does. Oh man, coming up next, I am so excited to talk about this one because my next review is for the film The Fanatic. If you guys haven't heard of this one, you will have now, because this movie, god damn, I'm so hyped to talk about this one. So like I just mentioned, in The Fanatic, we follow a crazy obsessed stalker played by John Travolta, as he is essentially a person that's trying to get an autograph from his favorite actor, Hunter Dobak, played by, I believe, Devon Sawa from Final Destination. Now, The Fanatic is directed by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit. Yes, Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit directed a psychological horror film in which John Travolta plays a stalker who just wants an autograph. And this is as amazing as it sounds, because goddamn, The Fanatic is so entertaining. Now, if I were to give The Fanatic like an actual review critiquing everything, this movie is absolutely terrible. I mean, there is really nothing good about this movie besides maybe a couple of ideas, but man, I can't, because The Fanatic is one of the most entertaining movies I have seen all year. I mean, god damn, not only entertaining, but this movie's fucking hilarious. John Travolta as this character named Moose. Yeah, John Travolta plays a stalker named Moose. This is amazing. The dialogue in this movie, there's things that you see John Travolta do as this guy named Moose, the dialogue, especially when he introduces himself saying, "I can't talk long, I gotta poo." This was written, guys. If you guys love The Room, you'll love this movie. This is essentially The Room, but in a psychological horror way. Just because of how bad it is, the dialogue, like I mentioned, is so bad. Like, there is a line in this movie not mentioned by Moose, but there's a line that says, and not only did Moose cross that line, he fucking nuked it. The other lines include this: "Poppycock, Moose is in the house. Here's Moosey. I wish Freddy Krueger would come over and chop off your head, and they would roll on the streets and blood would come out, and everyone would want." Oh my god, this is fucking hilarious! There is a particular scene in which Moose rides a scooter like this, and then he fucking falls. If I were to give The Fanatic like an actual critiquing review, yes, this movie's a 0 out of 5. But I can't give this movie a 0. This movie was so entertaining, it was so hysterical, and by the end, I have been laughing my ass off. So I'm gonna do this because this movie was entertaining as hell, so I'm gonna give The Fanatic a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This movie I had so much fun with. I was laughing my ass off throughout. If you guys want to see the latest So Bad It's Good movie, watch The Fanatic and have the time of your lives laughing your asses off. Almost done, guys. Got 4 more reviews, and on to my next review. I'm going to be talking about The Addams Family, the latest animated comedy from the directors of Sausage Party. And in this new Addams Family, the Addams Family are driven out of their home, and then when they find a new place, they realize that this reality TV person played by Allison Janney is trying to essentially make this town perfect, but when she tries to do so, she finds that she has to do a makeover to the Addams Family home in order to get her ratings up, I guess. And this is what I'll say about the Addams Family. The casting is great, the animation fits for this movie as well, and there are some aspects where the macabre humor works, and I also love the beginning of this movie. However, the Addams Family was a huge letdown. Now, getting into my biggest complaint about this movie was the storyline involving Alice and Janie as a purse that's trying to redo this town. Right when the subplot happens, it takes away from what really could have been a compelling subplot that involved Puxie's initiation ritual, which is this thing that he has to do with a sword, which sounded amazing, but nothing is given time for that. There's just way too much going on in this film in all reality. There really is. And due to this whole thing with Alice and Janie, it made the movie just so boring that literally I actually saw this family walking out. But really the biggest letdown about the Addams Family is that since this movie was directed by the guys who did Sausage Party, and if you guys have seen Sausage Party, that movie has balls. This movie doesn't really go for it all, knowing that the Addams Family has this macabre sense of humor that, yes, it's a bit out there, but it works for a kid's movie, and this movie doesn't go for it. It never embraces that sense of dark humor that the Addams Family is known for. And it has a typical message of just because these guys are different doesn't mean that they're freaks. I mean, we've seen this done so many times, and the way it's executed came off so generic. But yeah, all in all, the Addams Family was such a disappointment, so I'm gonna give the Addams Family a 2 out of 5 stars. I had so many high hopes for this movie, mainly because of the cast and the directors involved. But this movie should have been so much better than it actually was. Coming up next is my review for the 6th Terminator film of the Terminator film franchise, Terminator Dark Fate. In Terminator Dark Fate, we follow a new character named Danny, played by Natalia Reyes, who is essentially being chased by 2 different Terminators, one being a protector, played by Mackenzie Davis, and the other a assassinator, or killer Terminator, played by Diego Luna. And while Mackenzie Davis's Terminator, or enhanced human, is protecting Danny, also Sarah Connor comes back into the fray to also help protect her. I really had no intention of seeing Terminator Dark Fate, especially after being burned by Terminator Salvation, and even more so by Genesis, which I absolutely hate. I really enjoyed this movie. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. Now, performances here, everyone is great across the board in all the roles. Of course, from Arnold Schwarzenegger at the T-800 to Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, who is an absolute badass. Also, Mackenzie Davis was great, along with Natalia Reyes and the new Terminator, Diego Luna, who played, I believe it's called the Rev 9. I thought he was a terrifying Terminator, or Rev 9, whatever you want to call it. Also, the special effects this movie are terrific, especially when you see the de-aging CGI and one particular early scene to which I will get to a little bit. The action sequences are thrilling, they're very well done, and this movie moves fast. It is constantly entertaining from start to finish. Now, here's the thing. A lot of critics have been comparing Terminator Dark Fate to Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now, this is both a good thing and a bad thing. The good reason why is because when it came to The Force Awakens, essentially, not really remaking A New Hope, but essentially what it did is that it pulled certain plot details from A New Hope and The Force Awakens, not in a way to remake the film, but essentially remind, oh wait, I remember this, that's a great callback, and Terminator Dark Fate does do that, well, a lot of the time, but it still does it to great effect. It recalls a lot of events from not only the first Terminator, but mainly from T2, and it does it mostly a great job of doing that. Now, why is this a bad thing? It's because it does it a little too much. I feel like that Terminator Dark Fate was leaning a bit too heavily on the nostalgia for my taste personally. A lot of people have been saying that they hate the opening scene, and I will say this right now. I don't really love what happened in the opening scene of this movie, but at the same time, it made me think, oh my god, okay, where is this gonna go? It does give the Terminator franchise a bit of a fresh spin, even though it absolutely sucks what happened. There are a lot of plot conveniences. Like, for one thing, there is a part where Arnie comes back even though you think he was supposed to be dead. There's also some law-defying physics involving a plane stunt too, which, I mean, come on. Another thing is some of the dialogue, yeah, it's a bit cringy as well. Overall, I'm going to give Terminator Dark Fate a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yes, there's a lot of times this film does rely too heavily on nostalgia, and it relies a bit too much on callbacks to the original 2 Terminator films, but I cannot deny that I had a great time with Dark Fate, seeing Linda Hamilton come back, the action's well done, and like I mentioned before, this felt like a proper T3. On to our second and final review, I'm going to be talking about a new cop thriller, well, a newish cop thriller, 21 Bridges, which stars Chadwick Boseman as a cop that essentially is trying to track down these 2 cop killers, while at the same time, in order to help track them down, he orders all the 21 Bridges of Manhattan to be shut down so that he can finally stop these guys. Now, 21 Bridges was a movie like Terminator Dark Fate I had no interest in it. It looked like a generic cop movie, And going out, essentially that's how I felt about it. Now, there were some pauses to take away, I won't lie. Like, for example, Chadwick Boseman is the best part about this film. It seems like he's actually trying to carry through this thing. And Taylor Kitsch, who I hadn't seen in a while, was pretty good, but won't lie about that as well. The action scenes were well filmed, and it is a competently made action thriller. But going back to, like I said before, 21 Bridges felt like a generic cop thriller. It really takes every cop thriller from the past and just puts it all in one, and it really does nothing new to make itself stand out from all those other cop thrillers. Now, they do try and do something with Chadwick Boseman's character as a kid in the beginning to help make you care for his character more when he's going after these two guys, but it just seemed like they were trying to do something as a way to give him some character development, because after that, there was no characterization for anybody. And when it comes to the plot itself, from start to finish, it is predictable. And I completely get what the film was trying to do. It's just that every other cop film has been doing this exact same thing. Just like I mentioned before, 21 Bridges does nothing to really make itself stand out. Not to mention the villains were generic as all can be, and by the end I just thought, okay, well, it's whatever. So all in all, I didn't hate 21 Bridges and I didn't like it, but it's just a very direct-to-DVD cop movie. So all in all, I'm gonna give 21 Bridges a 2 out of 5 stars. Not a bad movie, not a great movie, but if you're looking for just some background noise, I guess, why not? Finally, on to my final review of my late reviews roundup. I'm going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's latest film, which is now on Netflix, The Irishman. So The Irishman is Martin Scorsese's latest mobster film. It is a crime epic, actually, that follows the lives of 3 mobsters played by Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and Al Pacino. As essentially, it mainly follows Robert De Niro, who plays Frank Sheeran, as he goes up the ranks of the mob world before he starts to have a close friendship and he becomes Jimmy Hoffa's hitman. But really what I just mentioned there is just part of what happens in The Irishman. Now, performances wise, everybody, and I mean everybody in this movie absolutely crushes it. From De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino, seriously, all of them bring their A game. I won't be surprised if all 3 of them are nominated in the same category because they're that good. And since it is a Scorsese film, his direction from the first frame it starts to the moment it ends, and by the way, The Irishman is 3.5 hours, so yeah, buckle in for a ride here. It never feels like a 3.5 hour movie. It feels like at the very most, maybe 2.5, 2:45 at the very max. 98% of the film, The Irishman, is engaging, it's thrilling, it's investing, it's very riveting at times, seeing these 3 mobsters just go up the ranks, specifically Robert De Niro's as Frank Sheeran, going up through the ranks, talking to certain mob bosses, taking out hits for Jimmy Hoffa, and also talking to Joe Pesci. But one thing that I particularly loved about The Irishman is how the plot progresses. The first act of this movie, or I want to say the first 45 minutes of the first hour of this movie, is really about just this build-up of seeing Frank Sheeran talking to everybody. Then the entire second hour is seeing how he takes on all these hits, trying to protect Jimmy Hoffa and also talking to Joe Pesci. And then in the last hour to hour and a half is a crushing and devastating loss that you see happen to Frank Sheeran's life after he carried out a certain hit, and I was not expecting for this film to weigh the end it did. And another prominent thing about The Irishman is that this film does use de-aging CG, and I will say that for the most part, it looks very well done. Though in terms of my issues, is this film better than, let's say, Silence or The Wolf of Wall Street? I don't quite think it is. Going back into the de-aging CG, when it's attempting to show these 3 actors in their much younger ages, when you can clearly see that they're in their 80s, it doesn't quite look as good. Like, it comes off more video gamey than I would have liked it to. And remember when I said that for the most part that The Irishman, even though it's 3.5 hours, that it is a mostly entertaining film? I will say that there are a couple scenes that drag on, but when I look back on that, there are scenes that I wouldn't cut out, but I will definitely say that there are a couple of maybe parts that could have been trimmed down just a tad bit just to perfect the running time even more so. And going into the rewatch value, this movie is 3.5 hours. It will probably take me a lot to sit down to watch this movie all over again. That's if I took specific breaks at specific times. All in all, The Irishman is a damn great crime epic brought to us by Martin Scorsese, one of the greatest filmmakers, has phenomenal performances all across the board, and mostly through its 3.5 hour running time, it is an engaging and riveting film. So I'm gonna give The Irishman a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Like I mentioned, I don't think it's quite up there with, let's say, Silence or The Wolf of Wall Street, but it is still nonetheless an excellent crime epic that I think Scorsese fans should see. Alrighty guys, and that is going to do it for my late reviews roundup for the second half of 2019. My apologies that I didn't get to these reviews out to you sooner, but I didn't want to leave you all hanging, so please comment down and let me know below. Have you guys seen any of the films I talked about? If so, what did you think about any of them? Let me know below. If you guys would like to follow me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. I'm also on Snapchat and Stardust. So if y'all want to follow me on all those social media platforms, all the links and the usernames are in the description below. I hope you guys enjoyed the second half of my late reviews roundup of 2019. If so, please hit that like button, share, and subscribe to see more videos just like this one. And also, don't forget to hit that notification bell for whenever a new video of mine goes live. If you guys want to see any of my previous 2 reviews, please click either right there or there. And of course, until my next review, I will see you all next time.